Hello and welcome back to the A and B Sides podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Isaac.
And I'm Zach, and today we'll be looking at an album that recently came out by Seeyousoon called VIDE. Now, I was looking at Twitter earlier last month, and I saw that Megan Thee Stallion actually won Hip Hop Artist of the Year award, and a lot of people are saying that Little Baby actually got robbed, and they are saying that Megan Thee Stallion doesn't actually deserve it over Little Baby. So, what do you think about that?
So, I think that neither of these artists deserve it at the end of the day. But if it is between one or the other, just looking at their catalogs from this year, obviously Megan Thee Stallion was in the famous song WAP that came out earlier this year. She was the artist that was alongside Cardi B with that one. And she also came out with her earlier work this year, Suga, which was a pretty okay album in my opinion. Nothing special, nothing great, but it was alright, and it showed that she had some capabilities in solo work. Whereas Lil Baby, man, do not get me started on My Turn. My Turn is just abysmal to me. It is just not good at all. I really disliked this album a lot. A lot of the singing on it was just atrocious. A lot of the lyrics were super repetitive, which has plagued Lil Baby in the past. But to his credit, he did come out with the track right around when the George Floyd riots were going on. He came out with a track that I thought was fantastic. It was one of the better tracks that came out during that time. So I think that definitely did solidify him as having potential. But if we're looking at their whole catalogs for the year, My Turn is just nowhere near Suga. Not because Suga is great, but because My Turn is just bad.
Well, getting into the intro to Seeyousoon, a little background on them is that it's 9 artists that got together and formed a band from Florida, and it honestly, I feel like it takes a lot of inspiration from Brockhampton. So if you're a huge Brockhampton fan, you might like a couple things that this band actually does.
For sure.
And honestly, it falls into the category of like hip hop and rap, but they also use small elements of like auto tune and like electrical like sounds to really bring out different songs here and there.
Yeah, and some of the songs definitely fall into more of a poppy or R&B type of a mix.
All right, now getting into the album. The album VIDE, I was looking it up, and in a different language, in Latin, I found it was actually C. And now this album, it had 4 singles like as teasers right before coming up to the album. It had Steamy, ICFWT. Then it had Blue Chord and Shut Up in that order. And 3 out of the 4 songs I will say that I did enjoy, but we'll be getting to that later. For now, we'll start with the first song on the album, and it would be called C. Now, C I feel like is a real attention getter. It doesn't really feel like a song to me, honestly. Like, if you were to come out with a single of it, I wouldn't really enjoyed as much as it is an introduction to the rest of the album.
For sure. It's kind of just a nice, serene background music to like a pop song that would come out. But it still serves its purpose, and it is a quality track, I have to say. It is good. But that track kind of segues straight into the first real track, which is Ben Affleck, which was a great start to the album. Really introduced you to all the characters of the band, and gave you a really good R&B, or kind of like an interesting beat with a keyboard that I found to be very, very nice.
Oh yeah, it was nice.
The keyboard in the back of this track is fantastic. And it really just introduced the band as a whole really well, in my opinion.
In the song, there's a lot of different bars from a lot of the different artists, which we can see that in a couple different other songs, but I feel like it's represented here, possibly the best in the entire album. And in the intro is just right there. It's a real attention getter, and it just really gets you into the song right away, which I think is super nice. And on the charts on Spotify, this is at the very top of the popular charts, and I feel like it could definitely deserve that.
Yeah, it's for good reason. It really does open up this album with a very strong start, and you really understand the Brockhampton influence right away as they all play off each other like a Brockhampton band would do, and I think it's really great. It's a really great start.
All right.
And that segues into another fantastic track, Blue Chord. While on the surface this track may not be as good, it's kind of got a slower R&B type beat and feeling to it, but the lead vocals absolutely blew me away.
100%.
The vocals from the first guy that was on there and the female that comes on later, they were just fantastic. I can say nothing bad about those.
And I feel like it's a very catchy song. If you were to throw it up, like throw it onto a playlist, like at a party, I don't feel like anyone would bat an eye to it, and they would just keep jamming to it because it's just one of those songs they could just put on the aux, and no one would be like, "Hey, yo, turn that off right now," because it's awful. Because I don't think anyone would ever think that it's a really good song.
Yeah, it is. It's a really good one, and it's a really another strong start to this album, which I absolutely love, especially on a little bit of a longer album. It's 33 minutes in length, so not super long, but it does add up in tracks. The track list does end up being about 14 songs, including C, of course, which it gets long if you think about it.
It does.
For a 33-minute track list, but the start really gets you into the album, which I can definitely appreciate. So, segueing into the next track, it is Atrophied. Atrophied is a little bit of a step down from the first three tracks, but it still has a sweet beat. It has a good background to it, and it definitely does carry the track a bit.
A neat thing about Atrophied is that it's actually just a song by one artist. And before I knew that, I was listening to the track. I'm like, this really does feel like a single by one artist instead of just like a collective from like 9 people. And it does really show in this track. And I feel like that takes away from elements of the songs, but it also adds to like other elements of the songs. Because you can really see this artist's personality and flow really come out in its own like distinct area, which I think is just really nice. But I do feel like it is a small step down from the first like real 2 songs, which would be Blue Chord and Ben Affleck.
Yeah, it's still a good song though, and it is an interesting fact that it is by one person when this is a bigger band, you know. So it is a bit of a tasteful contrast to the album. So the next song on this track, 3001. This one had one of the best beats on the track. It was really in your face. The kicks were great. The synthesizers were fantastic. Made a great bassy sound. I liked the beat on this one a lot. You know, it was really good.
Yeah.
And the musicality to it wasn't as much as like a Blue Chord. The musicality on Blue Chord is absolutely fantastic, if you can't already tell. But it is still a very quality beat.
Oh yeah. Basically, when I was writing down my little notes for 3001, the only thing I could really find for it was a strong beat. So I think it hits like that A plus measure for the beat in it. But I also will say that the chorus in it is really nice. It's really catchy. And it can get stuck in your mind sometimes too, which I think is just really cool.
For sure. Here, let me pull up some of the lyrics on the hook. I swear it church, church, church. Swear it on 'em like church. 3001, yeah. Man, it's just begun. Swear 'em to church, church, church. 3001. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it does definitely get catchy. Fantastic flow on that track.
Now, getting into the next song, which would be a Steamy. This is arguably Seeyousoon's biggest work, and they even came out with a music video on it, which was, by the way, how I first found out about the band, is because when I was scrolling through Instagram, I found it, I checked out the band, I liked what I heard, and then I pawned it off to my partner Isaac, and he heard it too, and he also really liked it. And I feel like it also does really have that Brockhampton feel like Ben Affleck did. And it really gives the artists each an individual like area to like really spit some bars and really give out their whole personality, and I think that's really nice about it.
For sure, and the beat on this one, again, it's just a whole full-hearted banger. It can really go hard at points, and the flows on here are really underrated in my opinion. Something so great about this is the flows on this track. So many different flows from all the different artists. It was really great banger, and you can definitely get lost in it. You can by bobbing your head, just vibing to the album, to the whole track, whole record. So now we get to a little bit of a weaker patch on the album. Starting off with the next track, "Shut Up." The beat was really low key on this one. It kind of fell into the background every time I was listening to it. Even on like the later tracks, like the later listens where I was trying to really dive deep into it, the beat just always kind of fell back, and the whole song kind of fell into the background to whatever I was doing, even if I was just laying around. It really just, it was never like the center of my attention, but it is still a pretty good low-key track. And the lyrics on this one and the vocal tones are just angry, it seems like.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that really goes with the whole like title of it, which is "Shut Up." I mean, obviously it's not going to be like a smooth, jazzy song, but I feel like the beat actually, contrary to what you said, really overshadows the lyrics here. And sometimes all I can really hear is a beat and then a bunch of yelling in the background.
Yeah.
So I definitely won't think or say that this is the best track on the album, and that's about as much as I can say about it, honestly.
Yeah, and it's a more angry song on the track, which does contrast the rest of the record, which I do like a little bit of contrast, but it wasn't the best.
Yeah.
And then we get into the track "Every Time I Die," and I'm just gonna be real with you guys. This track was really boring.
Oh yeah.
It was just not it was just not that good. Which I guess it doesn't really express why. But me just saying it's not good doesn't really show why it's not good. So let me tell you, this is just such an uninspired track. There's not many voices on this one. The beat is just so mundane.
Very jumbled.
Yeah, very jumbled. The mixing on it is just, it's really weird to me, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like there's definitely times where the song could be mixed better and maybe it would be a bit more intriguing. But it just seemed like they kind of threw this one on to fill up that like 30 to 35 minute time frame, which you want your album to be at for a commercial debut.
Honestly, I agree with everything you say, and it is a shorter song on the whole album, but I don't feel like that's much of an excuse to say that that's why it's bad. I just don't think it's on par or even a very good track compared to the rest of the album, and that's really all I have to say about it. But then I feel like the album really brings it back after these two misses, and it really gets into like really good flows, really good lyrics, and a much better just second half of the album. Starting off with "Hatred Part 1." I think the hook sounds insanely cool, and the chorus I also think sounds really nice and just really interesting. And just the chorus, if you don't like really pay attention to the lyrics, like the first time I listened through it, I honestly thought it was in a different language. That's how like interesting it sounded to me. And yeah, that's
Yeah, for
what I
sure.
thought
The
about
chorus
it.
was definitely cool. Let me read it a little bit to you. So the hook goes, "Bad mom hit the earth when they touch pawn the street. Watch them heat teach. Watch them heat tech boom when they come for defeat." It sounds like Zach said, it is like in a whole nother language the way they say it, and it's really interesting to me, which is really contrasted by the really mundane track that came right before it. I think that this is a good track for sure, but what it's overshadowed by is "Hatred Part 2,"
100%.
another banger for this track list. It is fantastic. The beat is just amazing. The flow is amazing. The way they bring the whole band together once again to really make a really inspired track is fantastic. Can't say enough good things for "Hatred 2."
Oh yeah, I really like the lyrics in "Hatred Part 2." There were even some parts of the whole song where I stopped and I was like, wow, that's really nice. But I will say that it has a pretty slow intro, And if you were to just play the intro for someone like not accustomed to this band or even to music, that might even throw it out as ASMR. That's what I thought about it because there's a lot of whispering and just a lot of slower tunes in it.
Hmm. Yeah, but I still think by the end of the track, it really pulls it together, and delivers greatly. So the next track on this one, following the success of the Hatred Part 1 and Part 2, it is ICFWT, just those 5 letters. And I think I want to come out and say that these are, maybe besides Blue Chord, the best lyrics on the track. It really pulls you in with uh, a lyrical beginning. The first part saying, "Still alive, but I've seen both sides. Feeling like a bird, but the wings don't fly. Trying to get a grip on time. Feeling like I'm lost in my mind. Still alive, but I've seen both sides." I think it's an interesting contrast to some of the more bangery type tracks that haven't had a lot of lyrical depth, but this one it brings together a bit more of a lyrical aspect to it. And I again with these lyrics and the vocals are fantastic. The vocals, especially from the one female artist from this band.
Maddie.
Yes, Maddie, fantastic. Maddie was really great on this one, and it set a great setting for the track.
I think it obviously has like by far the best lyrics and the best vocals on the entire album. And honestly, I wasn't crazy for it my first listen, but as I listened to it time and time again, I just got hooked on it, and I just honestly think it's the best song, if not one of the best songs on the album as of now.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. So going into the next track again, the next track is titled 47, and the beat takes a back seat to this track, which is different for the band, but it's a good contrast to what they've been doing, where the beat takes a step back, the flows definitely step forward. There's a little bit of odd mixing on this one, not the best mix on the track list. And to be honest, some of the worst vocals, some really weird auto tune, which again I think goes with the odd mix on this one. But I still think that the beat goes pretty good.
And on 47, I'm just gonna say I was not crazy about 47. I wanted to really get into it, but I just could not. It would just always get overshadowed by whatever I was looking at or whatever else I was doing at the time, and it just kind of faded into the background of my mind. So I just feel like it's not on par with the other songs, but I just don't think it's exactly like on par with like Every Time I Die or like Shut Up, because I think it is just a small step above that.
Hmm.
But I don't really feel like that's saying much.
Yeah.
But going to the next song, Nobis, it honestly startled me from like a slower like outro of the last song into like this like super rushed banger of a song,
For sure.
and it's like faster, louder, but honestly, I wasn't crazy about it either. I just feel like 47 and Nobis weren't on par with the last 2 songs about that, because it had a good aftertaste after like ICFWT and Hatred Part 2, and then I get into these songs and it just like goes back to average, and then another average song to me.
And this is where I disagree with Zach a lot. I think Nobis is a really good track on this one. The beat instantly goes really hard, and I really appreciated that about this track. And the transition from singing to rapping on this one was flawless. It was really great. Definitely a Brockhampton vibe. And I mean, I don't think there's a ton of arguments to make this like one of the top songs on the track, but I still think it's a very quality song for the track list. So we have our differences.
A
here.
little bit of
We have our
differences, and I'm not
here.
saying the song's bad, but I just think it's like average or like slightly above average.
Mhm.
I just don't think it's on par with the other songs, which I think are just absolute bangers. But then getting into the last and final song on this track list, VIDE, I think Nobis transitions into VIDE very, very well. I think the
Sure.
transition is very nice, but I don't think, honestly, the same thing as the very first song, which was C, I don't think I'd enjoy it as much as a straight on single as I would as an ender to the album, because I feel like it's a lot more of an ender to the album than a single that they just released out of nowhere.
For sure. Its use of auto-tune in this track also much better than on songs like 47. The auto-tune definitely is a positive for this track, which I was not expecting, but I was pleasantly surprised. Some sweet lyrics, some really somber instrumentals that really just bring this album into a slow descent like it's fading out as it does fade out. And it is a really, really good ending, and it does end the track list on a high note, which I really appreciated. And now let's get into our final reactions and scores of the album. So we're going to lift them up.
All right.
1, 2, 3. Very similar this time.
All right.
Very similar.
Very similar.
So I thought this was a quality track list. I can't say it was a bad album at all. It was very good. I thought it was quite impressive for what I had heard from their first song, Steamy, that I heard. But what I think this band does great is the consistency of the tracks, and even when they have a couple songs that dip down, the flow of the track list never seems to give out. I think they always seem to bounce back at some point or another.
They're definitely able to bounce back. Like, it has some ups and lows, but those lows aren't even very low, if you know what I mean. Like, when it gets down to the lows, like midway through the album, it isn't even insanely bad. It's just not on par of the other songs.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the surface listen to it. When I surface listened to it, I was just doing some math, and I didn't think it was that bad. I was listening to it, and there were even some parts that stuck out to me that kind of snapped me out of my focused math state into the actual song. And then getting into the in-depth listen, it really brought out some of the vocals for me, especially for ICFWT.
Mm-hmm.
It really brought out Maddie's like whole performance in it, and I really thought the lyrics in a couple of the songs even were also really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I thought that on the surface listen, I thought it was a quality record. And I wouldn't say a ton changed for the in-depth listen. The singing definitely did stand out more, and some of the lyrics did. And the kicks and some of the synthesizers on some of these tracks definitely did stand out more. But what really stood out the most is the flows. The flows, when you're just listening to it on the bass, kind of fall second base to the beats. But the flows, when you get into it, they definitely... they kick ass. It's really good. It is a good album. I thought it was quite quality.
Honestly, I thought it was quite quality too, and I'm glad that we both shared similar scores, even though they weren't exactly the same. I just honestly give harder scores just in general, so maybe like rounding up, it could definitely be on par with a 7 plus.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that this band definitely has all the room to grow. They have a great band to look off of, Brockhampton, and they can even innovate better than Brockhampton can, you know?
Yeah.
I think they can take strides from here, seeing as they are such a young band. And I think they can do great things. Definitely keep an eye out for See You Soon. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. It'll help our small channel out, help us to keep motivated to crank out these videos. Check out our socials down in the description, our Twitter and Instagram. And check out See You Soon. Keep an eye out for them. Keep an eye out for future music from them. I think they have a bright future.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So anyway, have a good day.